Hey guys, Darren Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast. Tonight, we're going to go back to the great state of Oklahoma. We're going to talk to Mr. Jeff Clark. Last year in 2021, Jeff got a fifth place finish at the BFL Okie Division tournament on the Arkansas River. Arkansas River is a really great fishery. A lot of BFL tournaments have been there in the past. It's a place that they go to every single year. Really, they're kind of having it a little bit earlier this year. Usually they go there in the summertime, so really going to be excited to talk about Jeff, what he predicts for this upcoming tournament on the Arkansas River in a few weeks. Before we get started, as always, first and foremost, we want to say thank you to every individual that came out to the Major League Fishing Red Crest and came by the Revital Outdoors booth and saw us, picked up the samples, signed up for our pro staff, did the testimonials, saw what our product can do for all the different ailments that the outdoor enthusiasts are going through. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everyone that came out and saw us last week in Tulsa. That being said, before we get started, also make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. Check us out, Revital Outdoors, on Facebook and Instagram. And again, if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, we're a premium CBD company. All of our products are THC-free, made right here in America. They're great for all the different ailments that the outdoor enthusiasts are enduring, and making sure taking these products will ensure that you get to be more time on the water and out in the field. So you can purchase all of our products on our website. That being said, let's get right into the podcast. Mr. Jeff Clark from Oklahoma. How you doing this evening, bud?
Doing good. Actually,
Okay.
just got in the house. Just got done doing a little tackle. We're about to head to southeastern Oklahoma this weekend for a team tournament down at Sargus Lake. So
Cool. I love Sargus.
getting
Great,
ready to
great
go.
lake. Good for
Yeah.
you, man. So before we get started, I got to know, are you go Cowboys or go Sooners?
Well, we're a house divided here. So I'm a Sooners, or I'm a Cowboys guy, and my wife's a Sooner. So we've got the great state of Oklahoma covered. We both grew up there, so we live in Arkansas now, but we're still Sooners or Oklahomans through and through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we can continue this podcast. Just remind your wife whose coach decided to stay loyal to their school. So,
That's right. 5-year extension, baby.
there we go. So, that being said, let's get right into it, man. Arkansas River out of Muskogee, really, really cool place to go fish. You can lock north, you can lock south. A lot of guys lock up north and go fish the clear water. Most of the guys also will go down south to Little Greenleaf and catch a little better quality fish, chasing after those fish. You can also find them bedded in there a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your tournament last year. And, you and I talked before we got on here. You got a great history on the Arkansas River. So what do you like about it so much?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Fort Coffee, Spiro, Oklahoma. So I grew up on the Mayo Pool, locking down 14. So I really cut my teeth fishing the Arkansas River and Kerr Lake, and it just fits my style. I love to power fish, swim jig, spinner bait, flip it, top water, frog, buzz bait. So all those styles really play into the Arkansas River. And it changes all the time, and that's what's so. I guess that's what's fascinating to me is I've been on this stretch of the river for a long time, and it changes yearly. Especially
Mm-hmm.
in the last 5 years, we had a major 500-year flood.
Yep.
Some barges got free. Actually ran into the locking dam at Weber's Falls, and a couple months after that, they had to drain that river, that Muskogee pool down to, it was just a creek. We went up there and rode four-wheelers and, picked up lead and baits and everything for weeks at a time. So it's ever changing. It's a shallow water power fisherman's dream, just right in my alley. So
I wish they'd do that to Grand Lake sometimes. That way I could go pick up all the old wiggle warts and bombered
right.
A7s and all that that's in that lake, because there's got to be a mountain of them. So that I do remember I had moved to Florida at the time when that happened. I do remember them talking about having to have to kind of shut down that river so that they could get those barges out, because it was affecting the way that they could get barges in and out of that locking dam. So crazy ordeal. There is 100-year floods that come there nearly every other year. You can't escape it. But as you just mentioned, that's what makes that river change so much. I mean, you're never going to really fish it 2 years in a row because of the weather and the conditions that gets affected with it. And we're talking about, all the way up in the Mississippi River. It doesn't matter if it's raining in Oklahoma. If the northern estuaries are getting hammered, it's going to affect the river.
Sure, absolutely. And another thing that factors in on that pool is, once you get down to Kerr, You actually have the Illinois River that runs in off Tenkiller, and
Mm-hmm.
then the Canadian River that runs in out of Eufaula. So, Eufaula is fed by the North and South Canadian River. So it's just, I mean, you get a lot of change in water. I mean, and the Corps of Engineers really uses that for barge traffic. I mean,
That's a fact.
it's not a GRDA lake. They don't control the water level. If they need to drop the bottom out of it to remove two barges, they're going to do it. And so. And that's always a factor, if you lock and go up into the Shoto pool or go down into Kerr, that's always a factor. And that's what, with the BFL going out of Muskogee, that's what always makes it interesting. 3 years ago, we got down to the lock and actually couldn't get through. They had a breakup barge, and we had a lock schedule from the tournament director, but we ended up being stuck all day, in that Muskogee pool. And, I think that year we had 165 or so boats. You put that many in that small of area, it makes it tough. So I ended up getting a top 10 that year and just kind of hunkering down in that, Greenleaf area, Highway 10 area. And, I mean, that's the nice thing about it is you can catch them everywhere. Like you said, once you get down to Kerr or up in the Neosho arm, typically you get a little better quality, but that's not always the case. Going out of Muskogee, we have the weigh in there at Muskogee at Three Forks Harbor, and so they release those fish right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hundreds of fish every year. We have the BFL there, XFL. So big tournaments are there, and so, I mean, there's quality in there too. That tournament can be won in any pool at any time.
Right. And a lot of those fish that get released, they just take a right and get on the bridge, or they go down to that dike and just stay right there.
Sure. Yeah,
I can't
that's
tell
it.
you.
I mean,
if I ever fished, I always said if I ever fished as a boater in the Arkansas pool and I drew out in the top 20 boats, I'm headed straight to that northern dike and throwing a buzzbait because It seems like if you take 20 boats off, 15 of them are going straight right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at it a couple of years ago when the Bassmaster Open was there, the final day, I think Chris was the only one that, locked and went to Kerr out of 10 boats, and if it wasn't for a way above average day for him down there, all the stars aligning, he gets beat by 2 or 3 of those guys. Dale Hightower and a couple of those guys fished right there with inside of the ramp all day. And, that's just the way it is. That's what makes it so fun. A lot of times I do, I'm one of those guys that kind of likes to get away from the crowd if I can. And, since the grass and mapping and everything has advanced so much in the last couple of years, it's not like it used to be. Me and my dad, we spent many a summers wading and finding where it was, 6, 8, 10 inches deeper to run a sand flat to get into something. And, that's not really the case no more. A guy can idle around, bump around, he gets a trail, and then come tournament day, he can run it wide open. So,
there's been a lot of tournaments won on the Arkansas River out of little 10 machines.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why even some of the local stuff now you see, kind of like the Bass did, they outlaw or they won't even let you enter in a jet drive boat. I mean, you could go way up the Canadian River all the way to Eufaula Dam and catch smallmouth. It happened before, So that's what makes it interesting and fun. But there is absolutely bass all over that whole pool, and that's what a lot of guys always think. Well, I've got to go here, I've got to go there to compete, but that's not necessarily true. There's top 10s every year from all 3 pools, from the Shoto pool, the Neosho arm, Muskogee, and Kerr. So it could be done any section of that river.
Absolutely. So, well, Jeff, you mentioned to us you like to power fish. When you say that, I'm thinking immediately when the Arkansas River, I'm thinking spinnerbait, crankbait, chatterbait, buzzbait. What's kind of your definition behind it? What do you have rigged up?
Yeah,
what were you able to maybe put it together with last year?
Yeah. So last year actually was the first time we went to the river twice last year. We went, I just looked earlier before we got on, April 24th. So it was like 6 days earlier than this year. We're April 30th. But then we also went back to June. So, you kind of got to tell the 2 situations there. In April, late, I mean, literally from now, I'm looking outside I mean, all the dogwoods are blooming. There's blooms on every tree, Everybody from this area. I mean, you saw the guys at Red Crest, they're all talking about it. When you start seeing those blooms and those buds on those trees, every lake in this state, they're going to push shallow. There is shallow bass somewhere, everywhere right now. And I think we saw that with Bobby Lane winning, staying where the fish were coming to. And so last year, early, those fish were actually on beds. They were locked on beds. And I got into some of that backwater area in Highway 10 and around Spaniard Creek. And I'd found some fish on beds, super, super shallow. And the night before the tournament, we get about 3 inches of rain, which is not unusual for April.
Classic.
And the water rose and it blew out all the creeks. And so it just dingied that up a little bit. And so it was a little bit harder for me. And like I said, I only ended up with 4, but I lost some fish that day. My team partner, Jake Capps, he actually won the first BFL there last year. And Jake didn't get to practice all week. And so he was kind of asking me, hey, where you been? What's going on? And I said, man, look, they're on beds. Like, if you can get in a backwater area or somewhere, not all those fish spawn in Highway 10 and Spaniard or down in Kerr. They spawn in those little pockets and stuff off the main river too. But I said, if you get in any of those places, I said, you'll be okay. Just get in there and fish slow, And I stayed with Jake that night, and of course it come a torrential flood. And I ran down the Spaniard Creek, and it was blowing out, at the bridge. And I was like, golly. And so I ran on down to Highway 10, and I couldn't really see them, but I ended up having to fish slow last year and flip. I actually flipped a Yum spine crawl and just had to fish it slow. And I couldn't see them, so it took a little longer. Luckily, I'd marked them, on my graph. And so I had a general idea where they was. But I had a 5-something last year, and I literally missed her 3 times. Had her hooked once, and the third time I finally got her hooked. And I told my co-angler, I said, I got her that time. But and the water's typically stained. You can't really sight fish a lot, but if you find those clean backwater areas, sometimes you can a little bit. And then I'm sure that's what we'll see a lot of this time. But who knows? Today, 2 days ago, I was in shorts and flip flops, and then today I dug a hoodie out, and I had a toboggan on when I went out to the barn to do tackle. So we're 40 degrees today. So, I mean, you never know, but they're pushing shallow and they're ready to spawn. So I think that's probably going to be that'll be definitely be a player. But all those fish on the rivers, the whole stretch it differs a little bit. So they're not all going to spawn at the same time. Guys are going to catch them pre-spawn, post-spawn, top water. But my power fishing baits and what I would have tied on number 1 going into this tournament is the swim jig. I love the Booyah Mobster swim jig. I mean, that's kind of all of us guys around here. That mouse head has been around a long time. Guys who know about it. It's kind of. I still have a bunch of the originals. So I mean, that's probably my one of my favorites.
I remember when Chris Jones made that introduction at ICAST 2 years ago. I actually texted him. I was at the show, and I saw him introduce it because they were keeping it like a real big secret. They weren't talking about it. I texted him. Right. I'm like, damn it, Chris. Hey, right. Why you got to give that one away, buddy? So
yeah, I mean, so, a lot of guys in this area have used that for a long time. And a spinner bait. It's the same thing. The Booyah come out with a covert a couple years ago, and that's Charlie Christie, Jason's uncle, he and my dad, my uncles, they all fished together. So I was around those guys growing up, and I seen those baits. They made molds, and my dad was a CNC machinist, and they made molds and come up with stuff that been secrets for all these years. But I mean, with live and social media and stuff, the secrets are a thing of the past. You just got to figure out a way to make those fish bite now, because everybody's got all the tools, But spinnerbait, swim jig, and some type of top water. If that water gets warmed up enough, man, I always say the first guy to throw a frog or a buzzbait can get right in a hurry. So I'll definitely have those tied on.
Absolutely. So, well, Jeff, one last question before we let you go. What about as a co-angler fishing this? You know, a lot of different things the boaters can be doing on the Arkansas River this time of year. But what would you do as a co-angler going into this?
Yeah, sure. Um, last year I drew a guy from Texas had come up and fished the Okie. He said, the Okie division was actually the lakes were all closer to him than the Texas because he was going to have to go 4 hours to Rayburn and so on and so forth. But anyway, real nice guy. And I told him, I said, look, man, I would put something on you can pitch around. And I said, just fish it slow and you get a couple bites. That's the thing as a co-angler. Um, you know, having to run around or run the length of the river, you burn some time. If you go from Muskogee to Kerr, you're talking about 45 minutes or an hour and a half at the lock, or even 30 to 40 minutes down to Highway 10. So, I mean, I just tell a co-angler, put something in your hand you're confident with. Don't necessarily worry about what your boater's doing. I mean, if he's fishing slow, 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 and flipping a creature type bait, flip a Cinco or something like that. Don't overthink it. If you're in the boat with Chris Jones, he's throwing a swim jig. You're probably not going to have many opportunities to catch a fish on a swim jig behind him. Now,
Yeah, I was fixing to
that's
say,
it.
if you're a co-angler watching this and you draw Chris
Yeah.
Jones, don't get in the boat with a swim jig or spinnerbait. You can forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, now you may do just the opposite. If he's throwing the spinnerbait, throw the swim jig or vice versa. But, I would tell it's a target rich environment. There's lots of laydowns, lots of rocks, lots of bank grass. So even visually, what you can see, there's still stuff under the water. And so, just pay attention to where your boater's throwing. Make a separate cast. And if he just wears a lay down out, pitch 3 or 5 foot to the left or right of it, once he gets done with it. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, the first BFL of the year we had 2 weeks ago at Eufaula, I finished 7th. My co-angler won the tournament. So, I mean, you can look at my track record. My co-anglers usually have pretty good success. Now, that may be a bad sign on me or a good sign, but I'm either around them and can't catch them, or I'm around them and they can. But anyway, I would just say, just pick something you're comfortable with. You can never go wrong with a spinnerbait, swim jig, or a soft plastic if you're not with a handful of guys that are going to catch them all. But do something like that, and you don't have to worry. I would say the river's one of those tournaments as a co-angler that if you get a limit, you will definitely be in the top 10. But you don't have to. My co-angler last year, I think, had either 1 3 or 4 pounder or maybe 2 for 4 or 5 pounds, and he got a check, 25th place. So that's the thing, is you're on a time constraint, and so in your boaters, if it's any type of target oriented, he's really going to pick it apart and try to make that fish bite. So do something a little different.
If a co-angler's watching this and you have a limit in a few weeks in the Arkansas River and one of them is a 3.5 to 4 pounder, it's fixing to get really good for you at weigh-in. That's all I can say about that. So,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's just kind of how it rolls. So, well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on board to our podcast. Before we let you go, I just want to give you the chance to thank any of your sponsors, friends, family. I know you got a great support system there in Oklahoma and Arkansas where you live now. So, anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And Theron, like I said, I actually saw you at the BFL at Eufaula, and you brought some of your rub, the gel, over to Chris and told him to try it out. And, man, my arm was hurting so bad that day. I made 1,000 casts with spinnerbait, and so I put some of it on, and so that stuff does work. And I'm gonna jump on there and get some of that, and there it is right there. So yeah, I just rubbed some of that on there. So I'm a type 1 diabetic, and so taking care of myself and any aches and pains that slow you down, I think that's definitely going to help me. That's going to be added to my arsenal for sure. But Nitro Boats and Wits Marine, I've been with those guys for 14 years now, and every one of them's had a Mercury on the back of it. I can't say enough about those guys. They get me to the water and everywhere I need to go in the tournament and then back. And the last 3 seasons, I've been using quantum rods and reels, and I love them. A lot of people have opinions that Van Dam left and this person left and this person left, but quantum still makes a great product. And And so I really do like those rods and reels. And then a few other people that really helped me out. Gelco Outdoors here in Fort Smith, they've helped me out the last couple of years. And in a local company, Elite Roofing here in Van Buren, Arkansas. I met a guy through church at Kibler Baptist, and anyway, we started talking, and he's helped me out the last couple of years, and so he's been a great sponsor too. So
fantastic.
But and then my friends and family, obviously my family, my girls, my wife and daughter, they're in the back in the bedroom. They've got the dogs pinned up back there, trying to keep them quiet. And so they, they're always, I'm gone quite a bit. And so, the FaceTimes and the thank yous and all the love and support go a long way. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that stands behind me.
Absolutely. Even at the BFL level, we couldn't do this without a lot of great family support, both endemic and non-endemic. It just takes a lot of people to help us stay on the water. So, Jeff, again, thank you for coming on to our podcast. For all the listeners out there, you've been talking to Mr. Jeff Clark, 5th place finisher at the BFL Okie Division tournament last year on the Arkansas River. We want to wish Jeff all the best of luck this year. We want to wish all the BFL tournament anglers the best of luck this year. I know that all of the divisions are pretty much kicked off, so hoping everyone's having a lot of fun out there. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel before you get off here. And as always, thank you for tuning into this podcast. I'm Theron Asbury. Be safe. God bless out there. And we'll talk to everyone very, very soon.